the way that we
Let's get this started.
okay.
I'm just
All
no,
right.
you keep talking. Our editor will fix it. I just liked where you were going.
So, I belong to a segment of our industry that are known as departmentalized haircutters, that we've earned our living primarily in the salon with basically one service or amenity, and that is our haircut. And we, many of us of that ilk, came up through an apprentice program and a barter system and all these new ways of being that were introduced to us in America from England in the 70s here in America. And somehow or other, we have not somehow or other, it's the dynamic of time, is everyone likes the music that they grew up with. It's the best. Your 70s is yours, 80s is yours, 90s is yours, and everybody's like that. So if you extrapolate and apply that to other things like our industry, the the golden generation of haircutting, man, they're still alive. Many of them. We lost Maurice Tidy recently, and another legendary hairdresser, Angus Mitchell. But speaking pointedly about what I'm talking about, Christopher's still around. Tony Beckerman is still around. Many of the originals actually are still around. And we are saying things, that group of us are saying things like, young people don't get it. And they, they don't want to work for it. And they don't want to apprentice. And they don't want to. And when I look at the facts, it's sentimental, it's selective memory, it's not the way it really was. Those of us who were doing that back then, we represented a very small minority of the industry. The rest of the industry was carrying on as beauticians and doing their thing. The people who followed, Jerry Redding and Pivot Point, Robert Passage, and those that followed, whatever Sassoon and whatever school of thought, Paul Mitchell, whatever school of thought, we were actually the minority. And the rest of the industry was not being like us. And then even among us, there were people who excelled and people who we called skaters. And so this idea that the way we did it is somehow better than the way young people are doing it today is really ludicrous. It's not representative. It's memory, and it's sentimental selective memory. And if I go on from there, if I look at my own youth, when I went for a job after I left Sassoon and went for a job in a salon, and I said that I don't do blow dries, and I don't do anything with a round brush, and I don't do anything that damages hair because I'm a natural hair cutter, I'm a minimalist, and I'm of the Roger Thompson school of thought. At 21 years old, the guy I worked for treated me the way older people treat younger hairdressers today. I was a radical in New York, Long Island area, and it didn't fly very well. And I was treated like young people get treated when they see things differently.
Yeah.
And so I think that the biggest pet peeve I have right now is that people who are older recognize the value of young people, and what they're doing is simply being young. They're questioning, they're rebelling against, and that goes on. It we'll see further. They may not want to do structured haircuts right now. Do I think they should learn them? Yes, of course I do. But they may be onto something new that I can't foresee. So that's one rant.
I love it. I love it. And today we have Kinigson with us, award-winning hairdresser, national educator, editorial stylist, the author of two renowned books, The Haircutter's Handbook, and the newest book, The Power of Asking What, Overcoming Challenges and Fears, a conversation for mindset in action. So welcome, David. We are excited that you are here today. So kind of give us a little bit background of your journey. Like, how long have you been in the industry?
I celebrate 50 years, overlapping last year into this year.
Congratulations.
Yep, I started in New York. I started out, being a person who had, if anyone's read my book, they know that I introduced two phrases of mindset. Mindset, something that's very misnomered and misused and overused. I introduced a particular two mindsets, an inherent mindset, which gives you a limited future. It's one based on survival and not one of inspiration, and it's very predictable. And I grew up that way. I grew up with an inherent mindset, and for me, as I began to look, I saw that there was other mindsets, like an inspirational mindset. An inspirational mindset is a person that sees something for themselves in the future, and that what they see for themselves is something that gives them inspiration and power and passion in the present. And when a person sees something for themselves in the future, they will do that lights them up in a way that nothing else has. They will do anything and everything to overcome every challenge and every fear to accomplish that. And so my journey began at 19 years old, where I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a writer, I was a student, and I didn't want my predictable future, which was to be an English teacher or a writer. If my work didn't sell, I was going to be an English teacher. It was obvious. That was what was predictable. And that didn't look to me like something that it wasn't inspiring to me, in that way. And like most people who have an aha moment in the regard of going from an inherent mindset to an inspirational mindset, when I listen to the people that I admire, whether they be Paul McCartney or Lady Gaga or Beyonce or Serena Williams, early in their lives, something happens where they see something, anything. And that is, they go, I can do that. That guy with that guitar, I can do that. I can do that. And you are in a moment where you're about to have a personal paradigm shift. And that happened to me at 19 years old in a hair salon. I was sitting, waiting with my long hair, wet, dripping, waiting to get shampooed. And I looked out and I looked in the salon. I can still see it. 19 years old. And I looked out there and I was like, this looks fucking like fun. I can do this. These people are having fun. Mm-hmm. Everybody's laughing, music is playing, people are running around, and look at all these women, look at all these girls. I could do this. And I had that I can do this moment. And so I asked the guy how to cut hair. How do you become a hair cutter? My guy Robbie said, how do you do it? He told me, go to school, get a license, pass a test, etc. And I went on to do that. And in that moment, I created an inspirational mindset. And now I constituted myself as one who will do anything and everything to overcome all obstacles. So first thing I did when I got to beauty school is I wanted to know, when do we learn how to cut hair? And I went out at night to clubs and I heard that there were these hair cutters who worked at Peter's Place on Long Island in Great Neck. And I sought them out and I bothered everybody, and I still do, to bring it to me. So that's really the most important thing, is that moment when a young person sees something for themselves in the future. I can do that. I want that. And you develop a singular focus. Everybody we admire, everyone, just look at all the people you admire and tell me if this isn't true. They have a singular focus. And that focus exists in the future. They live into a future that they imagine. that's where we get, creative vision. Creative vision. So young people want to be encouraged to create a vision. So what happens when we deal with young people and the coach or the mentor or whomsoever listening for it says, well, they're just apathetic. They don't say anything. It's not true. They say something and you didn't like it.
Right.
Or you didn't hear it well enough. So I don't just speak to hairdressers. I also have done 2 years in a row at the Florida FAPA Educational Conference, which is foster and adoptive parents.
Wow.
So I've spoken to foster and adoptive parents and professionals who work with families in the system. And I talk on the topic of youth and youth at risk. And, I'll bring it down to a good friend of mine, the bass player in my band, and he'll talk to me about his 13-year-old daughter who says he has no ambition. And I say, well, what does she like to do? And he goes, all she wants to do is draw. And I go, so that would be it.
Yeah.
That would be it.
Right.
He goes, yeah, she talks to me all the time about, I want to create anime and I want to do this. And I tell her, you're going to have to go to school. And I said, there's the mistake right there. There's nothing for you to say. She's 13 and it doesn't matter what she sees in the future. It's going to change. You'll get to the time when you need to tell her to go to school and buckle down. Right now, she's drawing and just let her draw. So the mentor and the coach needs to listen for what the young person sees in the future. It doesn't matter. As long as it's legal and ethical and, it doesn't go against a family value that you wouldn't support everything they see, because they'll change their mind anyway. And that's the thing that's giving them inspiration in the present. And that inspiration interrupts the inherent mindset, which is everybody's just going to go the predictable route. Just look around. Everyone does. The attrition rate toward the top of anything is great. Most people never leave the open mic circuit. Most people who write never put it in an envelope, snail mail, and send it off to a publisher for fear. And so it's predictable. Most people are not going to fulfill their dreams because they get squashed so early in so many ways. And so going back to my beginning, that was the beginning. And that's the thing that I coach mentors in. And the thing that I coach proteges in is seeing something that's giving them being in the present. That being then teaches them to overcome obstacles. I look at the screen here, but you're really here. Is to overcome obstacles that will get in the way of that. That's the only thing successful people did differently than you or me, is we gave up at some point. Something got to us, that person. And so when that happens, everything will wind up however it winds up. Who knows? Choices along the way, I like to say that my career has been so full, so rich, and continues to be there because really I allow myself to be inspired, because I discovered inspiration as a sourceful distinction that opens it up for everything else. If you're inspired by something, you'll get it done. You'll do the work. So that's the thing. And then from there, you apply it to wherever you're going to apply it. And
I think, David, you hit the nail on the head, and this is why Sean and I wanted to interview you again, because it's that old cycle, that inherent mindset that's still continuing out there. And so that's something I kind of want to talk to you about, because, by the way, Christine Zielinski and Nuala Gilday say hello, and they're so
Hi.
excited that we're interviewing you. And they actually had the same exact questions that you already started talking about, because it's, you know, really inspiring the salon owner to get away from, we've always done it that way, and to be able to say, no, 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 let's get inspired by our newer team. So as an owner, like as a salon owner, as a salon leader, coach us on how senior, so to speak, team members, okay, that are frustrated with the new upcoming stylists. And I hear this from my school leaders. I hear it from our salon leaders. And it's just like, no one wants to work these days, right? This is what they say. And so coach us to have a new mindset towards the newer stylists, because I think if we continue in this mindset, it's going to destroy us personally and professionally, and our companies will be destroyed if we don't change our mindset. So talk to us about that.
You know, okay. When I coach hairdressers in doing the consultation, and then the service, if a woman, I always speak in terms of women, if the client, the guest, the woman is unhappy with it, and she calls up and she wants a redo, or as I prefer to call it, an adjustment, when the hairdresser gets called into the office, nobody wants to hear that someone didn't like their work.
Right.
And the hairdresser will be defensive. I listened to her. I did what she asked, et cetera, et cetera. There'll be a conversation. And there's no power in a conversation where, if it's always the woman in the chair was the reason why it didn't work out, there's no power in that. So the coaching is always over here with the hairdresser. What did you miss? What did you hear? What if you had heard that? Where could you have provided a more profound listening, et cetera, et cetera? So if we take that principle of putting it over here, it's up to the salon owner to recognize that they have an attachment. They have an attachment to the past.
Yeah.
They have an attachment to the way they think it ought to be. And that's no different today than when I was younger and told an owner of a salon, a boss, my employer, that I don't work on the half hour. I work on the 2 hour. And my goal is to deliver the best possible haircut I can deliver that will grow out better, last longer, be easier for her to style, and require less product. Well, that caused brain hemorrhages. How are you going to make money? Well, slower than most people, but I'm okay with that. And I'm going to charge more. And I'm going to communicate with them in a way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was difficult for them to get, because it's just not how you do it. You need to do a lot of people in short periods of time, book on the half hour, book on the 20 minutes. And that's never been my modus operandi. So it's always the job of the more senior person to expand their view.
Yeah.
They have the ability to do that. But the attachment is what will cause the disruption. And anything can be sorted out in conversation. So at the workplace, you know, is everybody, first of all, aligned behind a vision? Who are you having conversations with? Are you having conversations with people whose vision are not aligned with yours?
Right.
Well, then that's going to be a silly conversation to have, a futile conversation to have. So you want to make sure as a leader that you have a clearly defined purpose, vision, mission statement, whatever you like to call it, that you can share and ask people to be a part of. Invite them by invitation. They could say no and they can go.
Right. It's good.
So if they're not listening to you, you've got a person who is being toxic. Well, that's a different conversation. But assuming you got people there who you think want to be there,
right,
you've really got to define the conversations. First and foremost, I'm responsible. A leader knows they're accountable. I'm responsible for the outcome.
mm-hmm.
You know, a leader knows that. So there are certain things I think a leader needs to give up before they can constitute themselves as a leader who will do this. I think when a leader needs to give up explaining. They need to give up explaining why you're the problem. You can see that would be the same thing about the hairdresser.
Yes.
With the client. They have to give up their right to explain why it didn't work out. As you know, in my book, I'm very opposed to the conversation why. We don't need to get into it, but in this conversation, giving up explaining the reasons why, the justifications, the excuses, why it didn't work out that way, why you're not getting it, why you. And when a person can give that up, they can listen and be given by the conversation the person on their staff is having, and then they can address it. In addressing it, if it's consistent with the mission of the salon, great. If it's inconsistent with it, well, then maybe a different conversation needs to be had. So you want to make sure that you're on the same page with the conversations you're having. Yeah. And those are some starting places. Have a vision and give up explaining the reason why.
I love that. So we've talked obviously about the seasoned stylists. We've talked about salon owners, but let's kind of turn it on that person that's just stepping into the salon for the first time. What advice would you give the new generation of hairdressers?
Well, I would ask them to be patient with the older hairdressers.
Yes.
And I think that if you initiate, could you imagine what a conversation might be like if that was in the first the orientation of the new employee? Young, will consider that the person's young, right? It's not exclusively young; they can be older, but you get it. More often. So if the mentor, if the protege, if the mentor, the boss, the HR department, whatever it is, gets over in the world of the new hire, and that new hire gets heard, they have the experience that they've been listened to. Mm-hmm. It's just like step 2 and 3 in my 10-step consultation fundamentals. No different. People respond differently when they have the experience that they've been heard. And so I would give, so I'm going back to the mentors now, but the advice I would give is be patient. And, I would encourage them to recognize that there's a long career ahead of them. There's a long career ahead of them. And What lights them up now? You know, again, we could extrapolate from a lot of things from the way we all know things to be. Back when I was learning how to cut hair, you stayed on a bob, a one length line for as long as it took till you got it. That is one way to teach hair cutting. And that was the model or the paradigm at the time. When I had my second salon in West Palm Beach, after I moved from New York, where I had my first salon, I recognized that that model didn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. People want to get their hands in hair, right. You know, and so I found ways to get people cutting different shapes sooner. Mm-hmm. So, you know, everybody needs to adapt. Everybody needs to recognize, and I think that's a conversation to be had, the elephant in the room. Our industry, young hairdresser, I want to share with you, our industry is in tumult right now. With it's so not the way I grew up in the hair world, right? Things we frowned upon are now well thought of. It's a complete 180. People, mm-hmm. You know, this is going on, that's going on. When I started in a hair salon, it was run like a pizza place. Your paycheck consisted of cash checks and checks that were endorsed over to you. that shit won't fly anymore, you know. No. We can, right? Yeah. We can thank what's her name, Leanne Miley, you know, and the Sovereign Stylist. She really takes that on, where salon owners can't get away with. Right. And so we're in another one of those mm-hmm. crazy things with products, with clients. So I think I would have a conversation not only with the young people, with the whole, with the people that matter in a person's growth and development. So again, so that everyone can be on the same page. So I would tell them to, you know, develop tough skin. Now, now that I've said that about all that other stuff, I would tell them to develop tenacity and perseverance. I would coach them in a way. I would, first of all, ask them if they're coachable. You know, by now, if they, you know, we would have probably figured that out before they got hired. But you want to underline it again. By the way, we're a coaching salon, and there are qualities that I would introduce them to and have conversations with them about as it pertains to their goals. And the conversation, you know, I would invite them to find a salon that the salon owner was behind their goals, and that they were aligned with the vision, that they should interview the salon the same way that the salon should interview them. And just encourage people to recognize that we're in a reinvention stage. Our industry is being, you know, reinvented in so many ways. And because people have a forum, a platform like social media, you know, certain things can be discussed that couldn't be discussed before or aren't discussed now, that we sweep under the rug. And, you know, I would encourage them to be true to themselves. And finally, that they could you can carve out any career you want. If you want to be the guy or gal, or the he, she, they, them, you know, I really honor that. But I will speak in the pronouns I'm most used to, unless it's going to bother somebody who's in my current sphere. I would tell them that whatever career they want to carve out for themselves, they got to take responsibility for it, the good and the bad. So when I said I wanted to be a departmentalized hair cutter, and I didn't take people with bleached out blonde hair and use a round brush to make it look better in causing more damage, and I'm not going to do that, I had to be responsible for the brunt of that, the downside of that. as long as you can, the people that we admire, you never hear them complain. Madonna, you never heard her complain about anything. Lady Gaga doesn't complain about anything. Beyonce, she doesn't complain about nothing. Tiger Woods never complained. Never. These people don't, Bob Dylan doesn't complain. Paul McCartney doesn't complain.
Love it. Yeah.
They set it in motion and then they own it. And you got to own it. You got to take the upside with the downside and then just recognize that it's a long ride. And stick to your guns, but recognize that, it's up to you to overcome the challenges that you're surely going to face. I hope that answers your question.
So much. And I love that you were saying about complaining, because I've always said, well, when you complain, you remain, right? And so that's part of the whole new mindset, the inspirational mindset of not complaining. And I think that's so huge, and something I try to always stay really true to, David, is as an owner, and when Sean and I in particular are meeting with our stylists, especially our leaders, is really being in tune with them. And then I took on about a year ago working with a protege, because I wanted to hear their heart. I wanted to hear what was happening with a brand new stylist, because I didn't want to see it in the eyes of my senior stylist anymore, because I was getting a lot of complaints, right? And so I'm like, let me work with them. And so one of the things, like you said, and you hit this so hard, and I think this is everything right here, is they want to be heard. And I really feel like I was able to show some of our directors, like, this is how you hear them. And this is how you ask the right questions. And I remember our director saying to me, Tina, thank you for, going through those sessions with our brand new stylists, these coaching sessions, because I was able to observe, to see where their heart really is at, because they were more looking at what they could do and not looking at who they could become. And so I think it kind of saved a few of the hairstylists, right, on our team. And so I'd love to hear from you as we start to wind down, which honestly, this could be a 2-hour interview for sure. This is so good and so profound. What would you say, and Christine and Nuala asked me to ask you this question, why do you believe, and I'm saying this being a school owner, okay? In fact, we just opened a school a year ago, and our first stylist right out of the gate, first graduates, went right into salon suites. Now, granted, they are older and they've had businesses in their past, so they're not 18 years old, okay? But why do you think that's happening? Why do you think that new stylists are choosing to work independently and not going into the salon? What do you think is the answer here? It's probably a lot of things, I'm sure.
Well, I think because we're not completely out of a period where the traditional salon as we know it, people are not done giving it a bad rap. Salon owners right now get a very, very bad rap. So apart from, like you said, an older person who has some business background, I think that along with the ubiquitous education, or what's being called education, on all the social media platforms, gives people a false sense.
Yeah.
It's a false sense of knowledge about their craft, whether it's cut or color, what have you. When I see a person who's been, hi, well, no. So I had a client today, and I've been doing hair for 10 years, and I thought that I would be able to, but it didn't. So I'm asking the world to tell me what you think about fill in the blank. Great coverage. She didn't like her layers. And what you have is you don't have education. And I think that if you start to add up people wanting to make more money, people being upset with the previous paradigm. People thinking that what they're learning is really accurate, is useful, will add to sustainability, the longevity of a career. You have people, professionals, thinking that they could just go ahead and do that. And so that's all part of the tumult that we are in, the upheaval that we're in. So tell me the original question again, refresh my memory.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to first of all, why do you think they're doing it? Which you kind of answered that question, which I agree with you 100%. And what do you think is the answer to that? Or is there an answer?
Yeah, I thought of a few more things that I think that go back to the question, what would I say to a young person? Because sometimes I can get very abstract and I can get very esoteric. And so I want to bring it. I think the same thing is true for young people as it might be for a leader. I think ways of being, the way that you be makes a difference. And the way that a leader needs to be and the way that a new person needs to be is almost in many ways identical, or at least there's interface with them. Yeah. So I talked about, so to answer the question, a young person should have a vision, a purpose, a future that they see, I can do that. But so does the salon owner, so does the leader. The leader needs to have that. So if I wanted to address what can I do to stop people leaving, the first thing would be to make sure that I have a vision that I've invited people to be a part of, something that inspires them now. The second thing I would tell a young person, and the second thing I would tell a leader, is to be coachable. Young person, keep an open mind. Senior people, keep an open mind.
Yes. Amen.
And let's all participate in continuing education, continuing learning. The third thing that I would say is, young person, be of service, volunteer, raise your hand. When they say who wants to go, who can go, who will go to the bank, put your hand up. Every time you put your hand up, you're demonstrating leadership, even as an apprentice. And more senior person, be of service. Be of service, return yourself to what inspired you, the craft, but the service you provide to our guests and clients. Develop your communication skills. Be in relationship. Whether you're a young person full of arrogance and rebellion, or a senior person full of sentimentality, listen, communicate clearly, be in relationship, be inclusive of one another. Watch for when you're clicking off and making the other person or group wrong.
Yeah. Good.
Things like that, people have always left the salon.
Right.
In every era, people have taken their training and then quit. It's not new. They would quit and they would go open their own salon. They would quit and work down the block. Quitting today means to open a salon suite. They get the education, they quit. That's part of the upside, the downside. Some people have programs in their salon that them, salons like yourselves and others that are in your network, where while it's true people are leaving, people aren't leaving in the same way that they're leaving some other neighborhood salons. So the salon owner has to really commit to developing themselves
in
a way that they hadn't before. And that means giving up things.
100%.
So there's I talked about giving up things as well as taking on things. The last group of things that I shared with you was about taking on purpose, being coachable, being of service, etc. But you also really, it's very important to know before you can make changes, before you can have, I'm going to become that kind of person, I'm going to be an empathetic leader. You really have to do the work of self-awareness. So so that you can free yourself up. And in order to free yourself up, I like to end on the good stuff: be of service, be coachable, as opposed to give up resentments, give up regrets. But it's so important. People today want to dwell in a feel-good way. They want to dwell in a positive way. They want to dwell in an empowering way. But the stop to being effective is that in a Zen parable, your cup is full. And it's full of explanations, reasons, justifications, excuses. It's full of regrets. What if I had done that? It's full of resentments. You have to be willing to give these things up. Your resentments, your bitterness. You want to see if you can run your business from a childlike way. One of the things that I so like about our friend, Winn Claybaugh, is that this is one of the most successful business people in our industry in many forums. But every time I see him, what I see is an empty cup, a childlike beingness. And that can only happen when you're not encumbered with what growing up gives you. When a child wants to play with you, they come over and they go, "Will you play with me? Will you play with me?" You go, "Not now, not now. Go play in your room. I'll play with you later." And that child will come back 10 minutes later. "Will you play with me now? Will you play with me now?" And every time they come back, they keep coming back childlike, ready, brand new. They haven't made up a story yet. They don't have any of that stuff going on, that baggage, what we call baggage. And I think the ability to be self-aware and to work with your staff to be aware of themselves in such a way that they can know themselves. "Oh, that's just me doing that again. I see that." And return yourself to your vision. Your vision is childlike. I can do that. And so, that's what I think people want to begin to do, is get into the nitty-gritty of being. And I call that doing the work of self-awareness. Because when you take on that mindset, that transformational mindset, new habits emerge, new conversations emerge. You'll find yourself having conversations with this staff, with your mentors and with your proteges that you hadn't had before. They may seem the same, but they won't be the same. New habits emerge, new conversations emerge, new actions emerge. And then what you have is new results.
Amen.
So as we wrap this up, how can our listeners find you? What's the best way to get in contact?
Thank you. People can find me at davidkinigson.com. I finally have a website that's presentable to be up there. It doesn't necessarily show me as a haircutter. It shows me more as a conversational coach. But so we're still building out on it, but they can find me at davidkinigson.com. They can find me at David Kinigson on Facebook, at David Kinigson on Instagram. I go by all of that, and that's really the easiest way. And if they reach out either in a comment on a post that I might put up, or if they reach out with a direct message, I respond to everything. And I always like hearing from professionals who want to engage in a conversation that can make a difference in their career or in the lives of others.
I love it. What's one last piece of advice you want to give our listeners, to salon owners? How can they go to the next level in 2024?
So that's really terrific. I will give you a give up. So give up the story that you tell over and over and over again. Just give it up. And every time you notice you're telling that story, just stop and give it up. The second thing I would invite people to give up is comparing yourself to others.
Yeah.
Including previous versions of yourself. If there's anything that's always been true, is that we've been changing. Change is a constant. It isn't that you're getting older. It isn't that they're young. It's that you're comparing someone to something, or you're comparing yourself to others, or you're comparing your business to another's. Be true to your vision and focus on that rather than comparing yourself. I'll go back to one that I'm a champion for these days. Give up explaining. Give up explaining the reason why, and go to something like, what can I be counted on for? What do you need me for? What could I do for you? What will benefit the most number of people? What action could I take?
Wow.
And then I think with everything that we talked about, be creative, be indispensable, make yourself indispensable.
Yeah.
Be reliable, be someone that you can be counted on for. And you can see here in this conversation, it doesn't matter if you're the boss, a seasoned stylist, or a new person. Be creative, be indispensable, and be inspiring.
Love that.
Be inspiring to others. And so the practice, so if anything so we touched on so many distinctions of being, so many distinctions of transformation. And what matters is not whether or not the listener, high out there in audience land, not whether or not they got it all. Oh, how can I take all that on? Don't. Whatever spoke to you, if you heard something about respect or tenacity or overcoming challenges or give up explaining reasons why or be inspiring, and you want to develop yourself in that ability, you want to develop new habits, just ask yourself, what's 1, 2, 3 goals I could set for myself? 1. What's 1 goal? What's 1, 2, 3 challenges I could take on? Surely you can come up with 1 challenge. You don't have to take on the whole thing. 1 challenge you have to wherever it is you see yourself going. And then what's 1 action I could take that if I took that action, I would overcome the challenge or the fear or the obstacle to accomplishing that goal. It's a 1, 2, 3 linear approach to learning that if you just focus on 1, 2, 3 things, you will develop new habits, you will make new choices, new conversations will emerge, and you will rewire, whether it's this, the manifestation of what you're about, or right in your own mindset. You will rewire yourself and the others behind an aligned vision, and you will see growth. You will see development. So that's what I think.
Thank you, David. You are amazing. I needed this message today, so thank you for that.
Thank you,
You're
Dave.
so welcome. Yeah, Sean, Tina, you're so welcome. These are among perhaps my three favorite conversations. And is conversations that I call transformational. And there's a lot of brilliance in the questions that you asked, and your audience. I just want to say thank you very much for having a question. It was Cynthia, right? Christina?
Yeah, Christina. Yeah,
Christina, sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I live for people like Christina. They are you, Christina, make it all worthwhile to ask a question that would have me talk about my favorite topic, which is, the human condition and what we can do for our industry. So Tina, Sean, thank you very much. I'm really honored to be here with
Thanks,
you.
David.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have a great
All
day.
right. Bye.
Bye.